Dear friends, welcome to Think BRICS. Today, we welcome back Janvi Sonaiya. Janvi is a journalist with Indo-Asian News Service, focusing on political reporting over 10 years of experience. Her work has appeared in major outlets like The Wire, CNN, Al Jazeera, Times of India, and NBC News. She currently serves as head of diplomacy from India for the G7 Ambassadors Model United Nations, and she's involved with various international programs, including BRICS initiatives and youth leadership summits.
Thank
Janvi,
you.
welcome back to Think BRICS. For those
Thank
who is following our channel, you might remember that we have already had an interview with Janvi in Kazan when we were in Kazan in beginning of May. So welcome back, and we are very glad to see you again with us.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Well, today with Janvi, we will dive into, as you might already guess, in India's stance. So, what's going on in India? So, we are eager to know. Let's dive in right now. We have a lot to unpack today. January, I would like to start with the thought I had yesterday that the BRICS summit in Rio will take place just, I don't know, few weeks. And member countries, if we think about that, are facing huge challenges. Russia is fighting in Ukraine. India and Pakistan recently grabbed global attention with their tensions. China is in a trade war with the United States. Iran is in open military conflict with Israel. We hope that it is a ceasefire. But even South Africa has made headlines recently. So this pattern suggests a plan to weaken BRICS. It looks like a carrot and stick strategy. And the carrot seems aimed at India. Well, it is not, I don't know, a surprise that many people view India's BRICS role with suspicion. They wonder if India might be a Trojan horse. Modi skipped Moscow's victory parade. Officials explained that with tensions with Pakistan. But then we saw him at the G7 summit with Trump. He posted about friendship with France and Germany and so on. So, Janvi, help us understand, what does India really stand in BRICS? And so, sorry, where does India really stand in BRICS?
Yeah. I think in this one paragraph, we spoke about a lot of diverse things, and I'll try to address as much as I can. First thing is, we spoke about how BRICS countries in general are facing crisis situation either through war or through the economy of that country. But I think it's not just the BRICS countries. If you look at the world right now, I see several countries in the crisis situation, even if they are a part of BRICS or if they are not part of BRICS. Like we see US, which is seeing a potential inflation in future, or looking at countries like EU or Canada who are looking for more partners because of their conflict situation or changing relationship with America right now. Or I see Japan, for instance, which has an potential or a budding economic crisis going on. So first thing is, it's not just BRICS; it's the other countries as well. Second, looking at India's stand in context with BRICS. For that, I'll give you. I'll just bring a few points of India's foreign policy and how it has evolved over the years, because it directly or indirectly says a lot about how India is acting in BRICS. First thing is, if you look at 1947, when India got independence and Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was leading the country and its foreign policy, we look at India was very idealistic in its approach to foreign policies and its relation to other countries. But now it's 2025, and we have seen India's foreign policy evolve. We see our stand being more pragmatic. We see our stand focusing on the nation first, national interest first, over being idealistic in situations of conflicts. So that says a lot about how India is taking a stand not just in BRICS but in other organizations that it is part of. When it comes to BRICS, I think that it is not like a it's like a carrot and stick situation. India has been an active and a strong member of BRICS from its formation, and I think next year India is also taking a lead in organizing BRICS summits or presidency in India. So, having said that, I see the situation being exaggerated when it comes to India and its stand in BRICS. We see that this is a multipolar world, and India is acting in national interest like any other country. And I don't think anything is wrong with that.
I see. So, of course, national interests are on the first place.
True.
We
Yeah,
cannot ignore.
yeah, I would just like to add in the last part of your question, you also mentioned that India skipped coming to Russia for its parade and instead the Prime Minister went for G7 in Canada. Uh, Sharing it from India's point of view, that G7 summit was very important from India's perspective, not just because it was G7, but because of its location. It was taking place in Canada. And if you look at India Canada's past relations and like in the recent past, they have been strained because of Justin Trudeau and the Khalistani movement taking place in Canada. But I think the Mark Carney, who is leading Canada now, is trying to change relationship with India and for better. G7 and India's participation and India's invitation to G7 was the first step towards rebinding, reworking on India Canada relations, which is very important for both countries, considering the past where two countries have great bilateral relations. And even during the G7 summit, we saw a lot of anti India, a lot of anti PM Modi protest on streets while G7 was taking place. Yeah, Mark Carney was even asked a question on, how is he going to address this situation? He dodged the question, but he praised India, saying that it is a great economy and you cannot ignore India right now. India has to be on the table when G7 summit is taking place. So, strategically saying what uh, Prime Minister Modi did on attending G7, it was very important in rebuilding the equations and relations between the two countries.
I see. India is balancing very carefully. Your country is under intense scrutiny right now. Everyone looks at India, waiting which side it will pick in the conflict between Iran and Israel. It's a lot. It's a lot more on the surface because Indian government is delaying the answer as long as possible. We see that. It makes sense, of course, given India's very complex relationship in the region. From one side, India has very strong relationship with Israel on defense issues. So it has also close, we can say closest economic ties with Iran. Just to take an example of Chabahar port, it's under India's administration for 10 years. And it's not only a port, it's the only Iranian's port on the Indian Ocean that goes to Indian Ocean directly. Recent events show how tricky it gets. On June 13th, External Affairs Minister Jashankar spoke with both Iranian and Israel foreign ministers. So it happened right after Prime Minister Modi got a call from Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Well, then it happened that stance of India and the SCO when SCO condemned Israel's military strike on Iran. India distanced itself from this statement. It said it didn't join the discussion that led to the condemnation. And instead, India urged dialogue and diplomacy. And so India also abstained from United Nations votes seeking a Gaza ceasefire. This reflects its consistent approach of balancing strategic alliances. But I'm interested about SCO statement more. What do you think about India staying out of it? How does Indian society, I don't know, view this balanced position?
Uh, to understand why India is abstaining from taking a side in Iran and Israel conflict, we have to get into the history of how India has dealt and how India has built relations with these countries individually. Now, let's look at the facts that India abstained from giving a statement in SCO or in United Nations General Assembly against Israel. Now, just a few months back, not even months back, weeks back, during Operation Sindoor, where India was attacked, you know, in Pahalgam, and eventually Indian government launched this Operation Sindoor against the terrorist bases in Pakistan. Now, during this time, Israel was the country which openly came in support of India's fight against terrorism. And meanwhile, it's Iran. Iran's foreign minister visited India, visited New Delhi, and offered that Iran is open to negotiating, if Iran is open to bringing Pakistan and India to the table for a discussion. India did not answer it, or India did not agree to it. That's the second part of the story. But let's see how both Iran and Israel reacted when India was in a crisis situation, or when India was fighting against terrorism before a few weeks. Now, let's see how Israel and India's relationship has evolved. And I see a greater shift in India's approach towards Israel post 2024, like when BJP or when Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power. We saw how strategic, economically, or military wise, or when it comes to exchange in general, increased between Iran and between India and Israel, and situations have improved from 2014 itself. But if you see India and Israel's relation before 2014, we see that India has generally supported Palestine, or a free state of Palestine, but we saw the shift post the BJP government, or post 2014. So that's one part of the story. And India also currently has a lot of economic ties, or say military ties, equation with Israel, and that's why India cannot afford to take a stand against any of these countries. Now let's come to the second point of Iran. Iran and India are very old civilizations, and they have ties before India got even independence, like before 1947. Now, when it comes to India, I would like to point out two situations. Like, one is 1990s. This was the time when India had militarized Kashmir, and lot of anti-India statements were going on in UN or in the world in general. And this was the time when Iran took a stand for India. That India is right in this situation, and they favored what Indian military was doing in 1990 in Kashmir. Now, this is favoring India. Now, in 2020, in 2019, we see what the clerics of Iran gave a statement against India. Now, this was the time when they favored Pakistan, and they gave statements again in India in context to the Kashmir issue. The Iran officials said that what India did was ugly, or it was a barbaric act. Now, these are huge critical statements against India. Now, this just shows that how the situation with Iran and India have sometimes been positive, and the other times have taken a hit. But considering the overall situation, the past and the present one, it is in favor of India to be diplomatic, to look at the national interest and not take sides uh, when necessary. And I think this is what, as I explained earlier, also when it comes to the foreign policy of India, uh, it is in the best interest of India to maintain a neutral stand, but yes, to condemn all violence or to condemn terrorism going on, not just in this situation or in any context, be it in Russia or Ukraine. I think India has maintained a similar stand.
Yes, it is similar. You are right. You are right. Um, you recently posted a video on how Iran-Israel conflict will affect India. Very interesting point. Could you explain it for our audience?
Yes. So India, if you look at our imports, then 90% of our crude oil is imported. Out of that, 40% comes from that passes from the Strait of Hormuz, which is like a small passage between Iran and Oman. So if any crisis situation happens in Iran, it might directly or indirectly impact India. And Iran has also, the officials have also said that they are going to choke the Strait of Hormuz or going to temporarily block it. And we already see Indian government, trying to work around it, because now it's not just Israel and Iran. The war is spilling. We see the impacts also in Qatar. In Qatar, when it comes to our oil imports, it's not just crude oil imports, but even when it comes to LNG, that is liquefied natural gas, around 80% of LNG that India gets passes from the Strait of Hormuz. So, if the prices of CNG or LNG increases, eventually it means that the businesses are taking a hit, the transportation costs are increasing, and it's not just businesses; it's the common citizens of India might feel an impact because our grocery price increases or our Uber rides price increases. Now let's look at
Citizens pay that all.
it will hit the citizens at the end of the day. And when it comes to India's reserves, according to the official data, India has reserves of 74 days when it comes to our crude oil reserves, and which is very critical, because we see that the war is not, even though there are news of ceasefire, we don't see that the critical situation, the conflict situation might just end in 74 days. 74 days reserves is too less for a country as big as India. Second thing is, India is one of the biggest oil has the one of the biggest oil refineries. So we get crude oil and then we refine it and we export it. So if this chain of getting the crude oil, refining it, and then exporting it to other country, even European countries or America in general, if this chain gets impacted, it's not India who is going to, or Indian citizens who is going to take a hit. It is also the exports, and we can see the long term impact in the supply of petroleum or petroleum products to European countries or to US.
If I remember well, India's import of crude oil, the biggest amount comes from Qatar
Yeah,
and then Russia,
correct.
and
India
only fourth place is Iran, if I'm not mistaken. So if the strait will be closed, the only source of crude oil for India will remain Russia.
correct.
So if you say that the reserves for 78 days, that is two working months only,
Yeah,
that's not so much. So
that's not.
India may still continue buying it from Russia. What's the problem?
Though I think that when it comes to either oil or military or equipment or even food reserves, India is not looking at having just one partner, whether it is talking about any supplies or whether it is talking about relations with other country. It is always in any country's favor to have multiple options, to have multiple partnerships for any one thing. So even when it comes to say military equipment, India was 90% dependent on Russia. But when Russia went on war with Ukraine, the supplies of equipment or military equipment were not delivered on time to India, and that's why India had to look at multiple options. So I think that even in a crisis situation, it is important to look at multiple partners and not just one, either when it comes to oil or any other thing for that matter.
I see. Um, I have one last question. Today we got this good news. China and India agreed to keep working on improving ties in high level meetings. We know very well tensions between China and India have stayed high since the deadly border clashes in 2020. At last year's BRICS summit in Kazan, both sides showed a new will to ease the conflict. Now, just weeks before the next summit in Rio, they have made another strong commitment. What gives you confidence that this high level meeting between NSA Doval and Foreign Minister Van Yi will lead to real, sustained improvements in China India relations?
When it comes to India China relations, I see an attempt to improve the relations after what happened the Galwan crisis in 2020. And this attempt to improve this equation have been taking place since July 2024, that is mid last year. And due to the negotiations in October 2024, both countries came to a middle point, saying to improve, say, having direct flights or resuming the Kailas Mansarovar Yatra that takes place, near the border, or to de-escalate the armies on the LAC, that's line of actual control. So a lot of things were planned, and a few of them were even executed. And after these sanctions or the tariff that Donald Trump or America is putting on say China or India, or due to the uncertain global environment that America is creating right now, China or India, the two countries are looking for more partners, and the process of mending the relation between the two countries has just accelerated due to what America is doing right now. That was one thing. Second is about terrorism. I think the recent Operation Sindoor and the recent attack in Pahalgam has also so much to do with why Ajit Doval is in meeting the Chinese officials right now. When the Operation Sindoor was taking place, India did communicate that India is against terrorism and India will not tolerate it to Chinese officials at that time, because Indian government understands that when Pakistan attacks India, the military equipment, the missiles are coming from China. The funding is coming from China. So if India is fighting terrorism, it is better to communicate it to to the home country who is supplying loans or who is providing equipment. That was one part, and the second is that it is in the economic interest of both countries. It is in the economic interest of both countries to continue this partnership. Even in the worst times when India and China were having a conflict situation, that is, I'm saying, right after 2020 Gulf crisis, the bilateral trade between the two countries was less, but it was still going on because both the countries believe in having economic partnerships even when things are not going right. And I think that now uh, the equation between the two countries will accelerate, but with caution. And I'll tell you why. That just I think last month, Indian government said that when it comes to drones and drones manufacturing and drones import, the Indian government emphasized that most of it is imported from China to India, and now the government wants to focus on manufacturing it completely in India, because drones are used for security purposes, for defense purposes, and it is important to not import it from other countries, especially from China, and have it homegrown. So when we see India and China's equations, you might hear news that the two countries and two foreign ministers are meeting and looking at more collaborations. But on the other side, you will also see in respective countries on how countries are also telling the citizens or telling the government officials to maintain caution. This drone strategy was one thing. TikTok is still banned in India, and it's there for years. And I don't see it changing in the near future because the government still feels that it poses a security threat or an information threat to India as a country. So we see this diplomatic ties where there is caution and there is discussion going together hand in hand, and I see it increasing and staying like this in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Janvi, for sharing these insights with us today. Your perspective on India's position in BRICS and complex Middle East situation has been really valuable. Thank you. For our audience who wants to follow your work and stay updated on geopolitical reporting, where can they find you online, please?
Like, where can you find me online?
Yeah.
Uh, I can just share my social media links, like from LinkedIn to Twitter. I mean, I'm just there as a journalist. You have to, put out your thoughts. So I can just share the links.
Okay. So we would love for people to connect with you and keep up with your analysis of these important global developments, really. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today and
Yeah.
see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.